The biggest thing is that Jay's got to play better. He didn't play well enough yesterday, and we didn't play well enough, and I'm certain he'd take accountability for that. But it's very clear he did not play well enough yesterday. We can't sugarcoat that.
Hello, everybody. You guys are listening to the Bearscast, hosted by myself, Ethan Cowgill, and Andrew McCulloch. We're broadcasting live from the North Campus here in the basement of the studio. And we're going to be talking to you for the next 30 minutes about Chicago Bears football. We're going to recap the week that was, and we're going to look ahead to next week. And Andrew, how are you doing this week?
You know, I've been better, but I'm all right, hanging in there. It's a little cold out there. I wonder, though, which is lower, Jay Cutler's passer rating against Green Bay or the temperature outside today?
I don't know. I mean, how about and if you look at QBR as well, I wonder what would be lower than that. Probably
the weather in Antarctica.
Oh, gosh. I don't even want to start analyzing those statistics right now. It's just going to depress me. And, you know, it is getting colder. You know, I'll tell you what, when the Bears are doing poor this time of the year, it's just even worse because no one likes the cold weather. Like the cold weather is just annoying in general. And we'll get to the Bears here in a second, but like with cold weather, you know, it's a whole big process to get. I don't know anybody that likes cold weather. You know, it's a whole process to even get out of bed. It's not like during spring or warm weather where you can just slip on some shorts and a shirt and just head out. You know, you have to prepare. You have to make sure all your skin is covered, or you have to make sure that, you know, you got to get up early, turn your car on, make sure it's all hot, and you get the ice off your windshield. I just hate it.
It is what it is, my friend.
I just want
to, cycle of the seasons.
You brought up winter, and I'm in the type of mood where I have to vent because the Bears. Let's get into this right now. 55. The Packers scored 55 points. The Bears 14. A 41-point blowout. Another blowout where the Bears give up over 50 points yet again 2 weeks in a row. And probably the worst loss of the year for the Bears. Just kind of give me your initial thoughts on this, Andrew.
Embarrassing. Unbearable. The Chicago Bears are a walking mediocrity. Mel Tucker, our defensive coordinator, should not even be allowed to show his face on the streets of Chicago, and God forbid he has a job next year. He shouldn't even have a job now. How Mark Trestman did not fire this guy is beyond me.
And I've been refreshing every Chicago Bears news website, my Twitter page, looking for Mel Tucker news. Has he been fired yet? Has he been fired yet? And he has not been. Clean house at this point. I guess it doesn't really matter if you do it now because the season is already lost. You cannot wait till the end of the year and fire. Are you going to get rid of Mark Trestman too, though? I mean, what's the status on him?
Well, he is certainly on the hot seat now. There's no doubt about it. Having your team come off of a bye and be so unprepared and lose a game by 41 points against your rival. One of the biggest rivalries in all of sports, and it's not even a rivalry anymore because the Packers blew us out in Soldier Field and now at Lambeau Field. What makes this a rivalry when it's completely one-sided and when one quarterback completely dominates the other quarterback? It's no fun to watch.
Jay Cutler, 1-10 against Aaron Rodgers all time in his career against him. And, you know, Lovie Smith was fired because he couldn't get the offense turned around. And If Mark Trestman can't get the defense turned around, why should we keep? Why should we keep him?
First of all, Mark Trestman can't even get his own offense turned around. Against the Patriots, no offense except for garbage time. That doesn't count. Against the Green Bay Packers defense, which isn't even good. It's not good. They scored 14 points. Cutler goes out and throws an interception after Green Bay comes down the field and scores. After the Bears, they don't go 3 and out. They move the ball maybe 20 yards down the field, and then obviously they have to punt it away. Aaron Rodgers comes down, scores on our defense, and then Cutler throws an interception, giving Green Bay a great field position, and of course they're going to score on that. And you just saw Bears players' heads just hanging low, like, oh, here we go again. We're going to lose when it was 14-0 in the game. And here's something for you. Coming off of the bye week, Mark Trestman basically said, we're going to try and get back to the basics. We're going to try and find our identity. We're going to give the ball to Matt Forte. Well, Matt Forte had 2 carries in the first 9 plays of the game.
And against the worst-ranked rushing defense in the NFL.
Exactly.
That was the game plan. Mark Trestman does not know how to call plays in the NFL. He should not be calling plays. He doesn't know. I don't think he's a good – this offense is a far cry from what it was a year ago when Mark Trestman first got in. I don't know what changed because obviously the personnel is very similar. You could argue that it's better than it was last year or more experienced at the very least, and they should be better, but they've taken a step back, which doesn't make any sense. Is that because Mark Trestman doesn't know how to prepare and adjust to how people are kind of also adjusting to him? That makes you question his capabilities as a play caller in the NFL for over a long stretch of time.
I agree. Also, really, you make a great point. The players, the offense in particular, played very well last year, and Trestman had them. I would say he probably had them prepared more so last year, obviously, than this year. But really, what the problem is how was our offense so good last year, like you said, and now it's so bad this year? Can you really just blame Trestman because? Or can you? I mean, maybe defenses have us scouted better from this year than last year, and Trestman doesn't know how to, I don't know, maybe change the game plan, change up, create new plays, and freshen up the offense. Maybe he doesn't know how to adjust to the fact that defenses now know what we're going to be doing. I saw 2 or 3 end arounds in the game against Green Bay, and the first one got us a gain of a decent amount of yardage, and then the second one was to our return man, Chris Williams.
Yeah,
and he just got clobbered, absolutely clobbered in the backfield for nothing because Green Bay expected it. And again, I would see a whole bunch of times where the Bears would try and run a screen play and it would get snuffed out. I mean, it's just too. These plays just get called too often. You have to mix it up. You have to run the ball, and clearly
it's not conventional enough.
No, it's not.
It tries to go against the grain. Trestman gets too cute. He wants to try to do things that go out of conventional thinking. When you have the talent, just call a simple run play, get the yardage. You have the talent to execute. You don't have to do all this masquerading and smoke and mirrors to try and get big yardage. And I think that's where the Bears fall. That's their downfall a lot of the time.
Agreed. But I want to ask you a question here. Were you supportive of Lovie Smith being fired after that 10-6 year that we had?
I think looking back at it now, you really appreciate Lovie Smith. 10-6, you'll take that after the last few years where we haven't performed up to expectations. Our offense has done better, say for this year and the past few weeks, but. That's a really interesting question that you pose now, because if you look at it, you would definitely take those Lovie Smith teams over what we have right now, even if offensively they're not as attractive.
There's no doubt. I hate to admit it when I'm wrong, but I was absolutely wrong. I didn't know what to think of Lovie Smith being fired. I have to admit I like the Mark Trestman hire just because of the great things I heard about him being an offensive genius. I figured our players were still good enough to where that they could play well, but I didn't really truly appreciate the leadership that Lovie Smith brought, mainly on the defensive side of the ball. He had those guys going after the ball on defense, creating turnovers with ease, and the offense, it wasn't great, but if Lovie Smith had the weapons like Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall and Martellus Bennett together, I think he could have at least made something happen. Our defense with Rod Marinelli and Lovie Smith was ridiculously good. It was great. And I don't think I really truly appreciated it as much as I should have as a Bears fan. I guess maybe I was just tired of the coach that we had, and I wanted to change the scenery because we weren't making the playoffs for those past few years.
To look at it this way, though, I think that type of coaching that Lovie Smith brings was on its way out, because if you look at the Tampa Bay Bucks now, who are coached by Lovie Smith, they're not a very good team at really any facet of football.
But that's also not fair to make that comparison, because the Bears had so much more talent,
right?
And Lovie Smith had so much more experience with those players. I mean, he began coaching there in, I believe, 2003. And, I mean, he had those 7 or 8 years of experience with the Bears defense, and they had all of their trust in him. with Lovie Smith now at Tampa Bay, he's got to get the right players to fit his defense.
Yeah, the personnel isn't there at Tampa Bay.
No, it's not there.
But you haven't seen. I haven't really seen anything from Tampa Bay that gives me any sort of confidence for the future. I mean, especially after they got blown out by Atlanta, like 56-0 at one point.
No, it's going to take quite a while for Tampa Bay to rise back up there in the NFC South. But I really do think they have a really good guy in Lovie Smith to help them get there. I mean, yeah, offense right now is kind of the mainstream in the NFL, I guess you could say, but defense always can win you championships. And another thing.
Well, I don't know about that because the Bears they didn't win a championship with Lovie Smith, even when they had that great defense in 2006 when they went to the Super Bowl. I think the NFL is a little bit different as we go on because if you look at look last year with the Seahawks, obviously a great defense, but they also had a quarterback who was very capable, even though he doesn't put up numbers like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. He's someone who's very efficient with the ball, makes great plays. I think it's obviously a dynamic where it's both offense and defense wins you championships.
Well, you're right. I guess what I was trying to say is that defense can win you championships, but our defense did not perform well in the Super Bowl against Peyton Manning.
Right.
They didn't perform well.
Yeah.
You have to perform well like the Seahawks did. I mean, did you see what they did? They frustrated Peyton Manning the entire game in that Super Bowl, and it wasn't even close. Their offense put up a lot of points, but their defense gave Peyton Manning absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And you know what? Performing well, that's something that the Bears did not do. Let's just kind of briefly recap this nightmare of a game that the Bears just kind of laid down for. I mean, this game was just an absolute – it was rough to watch. It was 45-0 before the Bears scored any points at all. They didn't score any points in the first half. Aaron Rodgers and company just had their way with the Bears. Bears really couldn't find anything offensively. They couldn't stop anything. Blown coverages, miscommunication all over the place. It was rough. It's easily the worst game of the year for the Bears because, as you said, they're a rival. They're someone that you play often. It's not like the Patriots where you're going into a place where you don't normally go into, facing people that, personnel, players that you don't normally face. This is someone you play twice a year, someone you should be prepared to play. And that's something that when you look at the schedule, you go, okay, that's a divisional game, Packers. You circle that one, the proverbial circle. And to kind of go over the stats here, Bears, 3 turnovers. Those were a killer. And this is probably the most telling stat, 11 penalties for 163 yards. Those are absolute killers in addition to just not playing well as well.
I think those penalties are purely out of frustration against the Bears. These players just were incredibly frustrated. They gave up on the game within the first, half of not even just the first half of the game, but the first half of the first quarter. It just seemed like they knew they were going to lose. And these penalties, there were some of them that were unnecessary roughness penalties, which are more emotionally and mentally than just making, mistakes. And because of those unnecessary roughness plays, it just goes to prove my point that this team was completely unfocused. They were completely frustrated. They were angry. And obviously they were going to take it out on Green Bay because of the fact they had so many freaking unnecessary roughness plays. Or penalties, against them. It's just, watching this game with my sister, because obviously I had that bet. Yep. I put that Packers jersey on right after halftime. I didn't expect to do it right after halftime, but I was more than happy to do it after halftime so I could get out of there. It wasn't even satisfactory for my sister to make fun of me because I just sat there without a care in the world, because maybe I said the Bears were going to win 28-24, but that was only out of the fact that I dreaded even thinking about wearing an Aaron Rodgers jersey. In my head, I was right with you, buddy.
I predicted the Packers blowout here.
You said 35-21.
Yeah,
it was even worse than that.
Yeah, it was bad.
I thought something along the lines of the first game that they played, a 38-17 kind of deal, and it was even worse than that.
And now about this now you can find this picture on QUTV's Facebook page of Andrew wearing the Aaron Rodgers jersey. Now I saw this picture. Is that your sister's jersey?
Yes, it's freaking small, isn't it?
It's
a really small jersey.
That's even. It's not even like a jersey that it's like a jersey that will fit you. It's even to add in like the insult. It's your sister's jersey that's a little bit too tight. Now, thankfully, you're a pretty thin guy. Like you're not a large guy or anything like that.
I'm in shape.
That should be even, which would be even more amusing and even more embarrassing. But that's it's embarrassing.
I can't even tell you, man. I think it was more embarrassing for that Packers jersey to be put on me than it was for me to put that Packers jersey on. I think that Packers jersey probably feels bad for me being a Bears fan because our team is so mediocre.
Mediocre is
that is being nice. Honestly,
that's being pleasant.
Yeah,
more than they deserve. Aaron Rodgers, 315 yards passing, six touchdowns, no interceptions. Jay Cutler, 2 interceptions and a fumble. Tale of two quarterbacks there, two sides of the spectrum.
At one point, I have to bring this up. At one point, my sister, Brooklyn, the Eagles fan, who, congratulations, they won last night against Cam Newton and the Panthers on Monday Night Football. She said during the middle of the game, I don't think this still implies because Cutler threw a touchdown or two, but she said that Aaron Rodgers had 6 touchdown passes in the first half alone, and Jay Cutler had only had 5 touchdown passes since week 6.
Just
how ridiculous is that?
It's there's nothing more to be said.
That's right.
That tells you everything you need to know about the Bears season, and it's not great. And let's kind of get a vibe let's get some Twitter reaction from some local area beat writers in the Chicago area, that is, about the Bears. Brad Biggs, who covers the Bears for the Chicago Tribune, he sent out a tweet after the game saying, Trestman says Bears have to figure out how they played 4 quarters versus Atlanta. Because the Falcons are not good, one place to start. So those were his thoughts. Adam Johns for the Chicago Sun-Times says, simply just puts it, just beyond embarrassing. And those kind of just echo what we covered there. So, even in Chicago, no one has any sort of faith in this team. Everyone's just kind of piling on. It's a rough year, and it's going to be a rough 5 weeks ahead that we have left.
Yep. I don't really have much more to add to that. I've basically poured my entire soul out from that game, and it doesn't even hurt. It's to me, I'm not even embarrassed anymore. What more can we expect from a Bears team that has absolutely no heart against a Green Bay team that has a lot of it and has even more talent than we do and actually executes on it?
Yeah, Bears fans across the world have gone from anger and vitriol to just complete apathy, not even caring, and that's really unfortunate for a city that's so passionate.
Why should we when we have 2 other teams that are just beginning their seasons, who are good teams and will play well?
Exactly, and they're going to be in the playoffs probably. Let's kind of switch here to let's look at the divisional standings for the Bears. Detroit, we say it every week. Surprisingly
resilient, absolutely resilient. They came back again.
Dirty, ugly wins, but they're wins.
From the closet defeat to on top against Miami. Matt Stafford with that clutch pass.
20-16, and then obviously the previous week where they beat Atlanta, coming back from 21-0 at halftime. They're going to play at Arizona, so that's going to be a real interesting matchup because those two teams, surprisingly atop the NFC. Arizona without Carson Palmer now with Drew Stanton in. That's going to be interesting to see how Arizona holds up. And this is going to be a cool litmus test for Detroit to see kind of where they are. Can they beat the better teams? Which is interesting that Arizona is one of the better teams in the NFC.
Defense.
Exactly. So that'll be a matchup to watch. And another matchup that's really interesting. Green Bay is going to take on Philly. Green Bay is 6-3 on the year, second in the division. They're looking like they've really recovered since their rough start, 1-2. Against Philly, another contender in the NFC, 2 potential playoff matchups right there. And then Minnesota, who had a bye last week, they're ahead of the Bears in the division right now. They're third, while the Bears sit at last at 3-6. They're going to take on the Bears at Soldier Field in a matchup of the NFC North's worst 2 teams.
Not a playoff. I sure like hearing you say that.
Not a potential playoff matchup for sure. It's just a real ugly game. Actually, in fact, the Bears, let's pile on just a little bit more here. Let's look at where they stand against some of the various. I looked up some of the various power rankings across different sports outlets, sports news outlets. CBS Sports writer Pete Prisco has them 24th in the NFL, saying that defense is an eyesore like no other. Is Mark Trestman gone after the season? And then Frank Schwab of Yahoo Sports, he puts them at 25th in the NFL, saying, total meltdown. It's not all Jay Cutler's fault, though he has a ton. It's not all the defense's fault, though it has a ton. It's not all Mark Trestman's fault, though he has a ton. When you're running this bad in the NFL, it's not one thing. And then from the Washington Post, Mark Mask, 29th in the NFL, saying Mark Trestman has joined the list of NFL head coaches with tenuous job security. The performance in the first half Sunday night in Green Bay, in which the Bears permitted 6 touchdown passes by Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, came after Chicago had 2 weeks to get ready for the game. The Bears have yielded 106 points in their last 2 games. The issues go beyond the head coach, of course, but the way of the NFL is that the coach is ultimately held responsible. So near the bottom of the half, again, on everybody's power ranking list as they head into this matchup where they're going to be hosting Minnesota. Again, the Bears have yet to have a victory at Soldier Field. How do you think this game is going to play out? What are your thoughts about it?
I have no idea. The Chicago Bears have become the Dallas Cowboys. You never know what to expect with them. I'm talking about the old Dallas Cowboys because these Dallas Cowboys this year are playing like most thought the Chicago Bears would play this year. Have they switched identities? Who knows? But, it is Minnesota, but it is the Bears with no identity. I don't think the Bears are going to win this game. I really don't. I want to say that they will, but I can't. I can't say they're going to win this game. I can't do it.
I almost want the Bears to lose. I just want to see how crazy the reaction is if the Bears can't even beat Minnesota. I just want to see how far this rabbit hole goes with the Bears this season if they lose. I almost want them to drop every game of the regular season and just see what happens. See the type of shakeup that occurs, because maybe it might help them. If we just do poor enough and we get all the coaching staff out of there, bring in a whole new coaching staff. And the thing of it is that you're stuck with Jay Cutler. Phil Emery, for all the good decisions that he's made.
The worst one he's made as a Chicago Bears general manager.
Because this one, it's not like where you drafted Shea McClellan in the first round. And that's a draft pick. That's not something that you're committed to forever. But
yeah, and he's going to be gone soon, I'm sure.
Jay Cutler, the type of contract that you gave him, you have no other option other than to hold on to him, because no one's going to take that contract. No one's going to take that contract for how he's producing right now. And you're stuck with him. This is your quarterback that you're stuck with. So
I would have signed Jay Cutler to a 1-year deal or put a franchise tag on him.
Franchise him at least.
And then maybe even have tried bringing McCown back for another year and have him play it out. Or draft a rookie
quarterback
and bring him up.
What is your contingency plan?
But,
if a guy who has the concussion history of Jay Cutler, what if he goes down? They have no backup.
Not even concussion history. It's just complete injury history.
The guy is he's a bit dangerous at times, and they don't have a backup for him. So against Minnesota here, let's break down where both these teams stand. Offensively, neither team is particularly lighting it up. Bears 22nd in points per game at 21.6. Minnesota 26th in the league, just a little bit below 19 points per game. But where Minnesota is really turning it up defensively, they're one of the better teams at the passing game, 4th in the NFL in passing defense, giving up just 214 yards per game, and the Bears defense last in the NFL in points given up at 30.8, and just about near the bottom of every other category except for rushing, where they're in the middle of the league. It's a tale of two teams. A good pass defense by Minnesota, and a pass offense by the Bears. It's been erratic all year.
Yeah, and the stat that probably surprises me the most is that Minnesota's 10th in rushing yards as a collective unit without Adrian Peterson. That's pretty good, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they've picked it up since Adrian Peterson went down, and a team that has been captained by Christian Ponder, Matt Castle, and Teddy Bridgewater collectively over the years has a better record than a team quarterbacked by the highest paid player in the NFL, Jay Cutler.
Which means absolutely nothing since that player can't even perform under the bright lights.
And that's the whole, exactly. You're not making your money. And Teddy Bridgewater.
He's not earning his money.
Teddy Bridgewater has stepped in, and, he's really not doing, nothing really stands out about him. He's kind of having a rough year. It's his rookie season. He kind of got thrown into the mix earlier than they probably wanted him to, Minnesota. He's got 3 touchdowns to 5 interceptions on the year, 60% completion rating. He's been sacked over 18 times already. He's having a hard time adjusting. But, as you said, they get it done in the rushing game. Jerick McKinnon over 5 yards per carry, or just at 5 yards per carry. He's really picked it up in lieu of Adrian Peterson. What do you think about this Minnesota team? How can they beat the Bears? What would you say?
Absolutely, they can beat the Bears.
Yeah,
anybody could beat the Bears right now, minus probably Oakland and Jacksonville, and probably Tampa Bay, who will face the week after this with Minnesota. I could easily see these next 2 weeks going either way, and us Bears, losing these games and just angering their fans even more, or I could see the Bears teasing their fans and winning these next 2 games and saying, "Ooh, well, we're 5-6 now. We go on a run, and maybe we'll get you talking, and we'll save a few jobs for the next coming year."
Please don't.
Please don't what?
I honestly would rather than they lose if it meant a coaching shift, a coaching change. I don't think I want to see Mark Trestman next year.
I agree. But I'm just telling you right now, couldn't you see a tease where the Bears
that would be the most
somehow get to 7-9?
The Bears have gotten so bad now that I'm actually wanting them to lose.
No, so do I.
And if they win, I'm going to be disappointed that they win now. That's the state of the Bears right now. I don't even want them to win. If they win, I'm going to be upset. Like, why are they doing this to me?
Well, I have good news for you, buddy, because what I think is going to happen, I think this is going to be a relatively low-scoring game. Because the Bears' offense isn't performing well, even though they're good, and Minnesota doesn't score a lot of points during their games. I see this being 17-14, coming down the home stretch in the fourth quarter, with Jay Cutler giving us a chance to win the game, and he's going to make some kind of dumb mistake with Minnesota's good passing defense, and he's probably going to throw an interception. He's going to fumble the ball or something like that, and the Bears are going to lose 17-14 at home against the Vikings.
Man. I almost see. What if the Bears went on a run where they finish the season 9-7, they sneak into the playoffs?
No.
But I'm
why
saying,
are you? Why this is?
I'm not saying this is
a
real.
fantasy beyond even Walt Disney's beliefs.
I'm saying, but I'm trying to draw the parallel to Tom Coughlin, because if you look at those new, I'm not saying that this is a possibility at all, because they're going to lose more games, but. I find it so frustrating when you're stuck with a team that's so middling. But what if they pulled off a Super Bowl win and you're kind of stuck with that coach that kind of gets you through like 8-8 and 9-7 seasons, kind of like Tom Coughlin, where like New York can't really fire Tom Coughlin because he's got them 2 Super Bowls. But I see, like, I don't want to be stuck in that situation where we have like Mark Trestman who can't call plays to save his life type of deal. You know what I'm saying?
You're not gonna have to worry about that.
I know I probably won't.
No, there's no problem. You're not. There's a 0% chance of the Bears winning the Super Bowl this year.
I'm not even gonna be happy if we win the Super Bowl now because it means we're gonna have to keep Mark Trestman. I want to deport Mark Trestman back to Canada. I don't want him in this country anymore.
I don't think any Bears fan would say that they would be unhappy to win a Super Bowl.
I know, but see, like that. But I don't want Mark Trestman as our coach.
I know you don't.
So if we win the Super Bowl at 9-7,
we win the Super Bowl.
But then we have to deal another season of Mark Trestman's inconsistent play calling.
So just fire him the year after.
But you can't because he's untouchable because he's got a
Like, that's not how business works.
Exactly. Tom Coughlin is the same way. He's
Well, that's management in New York. This is management in Chicago.
Are you kidding me? They're beholden to Jay Cutler, and he didn't even do anything to get that money. You know, he underperformed subpar, and they gave him the biggest contract in the NFL.
I know, because they're advocates of Jay Cutler.
And if Mark Trestman wins the Super Bowl, what are they going to do? They're going to buy him. They're gonna dedicate a drive to him in Chicago.
All right, I'm done playing along with you. I was not being serious. This is not going to happen. Mark Trestman's not going to win a Super Bowl.
But this is
we both know that management and Mark Trestman probably have Jay Cutler on their fantasy team for God knows what, but they probably do because they seem to never blame this guy. Mark Trestman doesn't blame anybody. Lovie Smith would hold people accountable. Any coach would hold people accountable. Mark Trestman and Bruce Arians were the two finalists for the head coaching job for the Chicago Bears. What a mistake that was, because look at where Bruce Arians has the Arizona Cardinals right now.
Yeah, look at where the Cardinals are and look at where the Bears are in the standings. All right, I'm going to take Minnesota in this game. I'm going to say a mobile quarterback's dangerous for the Bears. I'm going to say 28-21. Minnesota is going to take this. Bears remain winless at Soldier Field. That's my thoughts on it. Let's wrap this up here. You guys have been listening to the Bearscast with Ethan Cowgill and Andrew McCulloch. You can find us every Wednesday on QUTV or Channel 97 in the dorms. And Andrew, anything you want to leave us with?
I'm not saying bear down because the only thing that's down right now is the Chicago Bears. So I would say down Chicago Bears.
All right. You guys have a great week. Thanks for listening.